Welcome to the channel, YouTube. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hey, today's topic for discussion is going to be sales call. What you should go over during your sales call. A lot of people, they talk to their seller and they sound so robotic. So what I want to do is I want to talk about what we should actually accomplish during the sales call and not what we think we should do, right? So this is for all the newbies and this is for people that's been in it but been doing it the wrong way along the process. So let's jump into it. Before we do that, however, I want to make sure you guys like the video, right? It allows me to get to a wide range of people, and ultimately that's what I'm trying to do, is add value to a ton of people. So definitely make sure you like the video so we can move forward in that direction. And if you haven't subscribed, if you truly mess with me, make sure you hit that notification bell. That way you'll get the data or get the value whenever it's put out. Let's get started. So the first thing every sales call should do is build rapport, right? Rapport is so huge in any industry, especially when we're talking about sales. If you don't have rapport, it's literally not necessarily, I'm not gonna say no, but it's gonna be extremely hard to get that sale, right? At the end of the day, you wanna make sure you build rapport with your particular seller so you can ultimately, eventually make money with them, right? So you wanna build that rapport, and the way you go about it, we use an acronym called FORM. FORM, right? Form: family, occupation, recreation, and motivation. That is the acronym that we use in order to get things moved forward as far as building rapport, right? Everybody that's looking at this is either a son, either a daughter, either a mother, either a father, right? We can all relate to being that in that particular role and having family members and being around family, right? We either got kids, we either don't have kids, right? We either got a mother, some of us don't have a mother, but just everybody, we all relate to family in some form, shape, form, or fashion. So with that being said, family is always the easiest one. So family is one that you always look for. And then the next one is occupation, right? Career, especially if you're networking amongst investors or amongst anybody else, you want to figure out what they do for a living. That's a very big deal now in today's world. So you want to dive deep in that. And if you can talk about that, typically that's a topic for discussion that kind of breaks the ice, right? So if I'm an investor, and you may not be an investor, but you assume, or we ask a question about what investors do on a day-to-day basis. Now we're talking to that particular investor and we're getting them to open up. Now they feel more comfortable, right? We've broken the ice because now we got them talking about an occupation or a lawyer, right? You talk about what kind of big discussions you guys got going on, or big cases you got going on. What did you think about this? What did you think about that, right? Just open that first level of communication up with that particular seller is huge. Now, like I said, as far as a seller's point of view, occupation, not really a big deal. Some of them will go off on it, but not necessarily a thing I'm looking to do when I'm on it, but it's just a part of the acronym form and I want to go over it. So we got recreation. Obviously, this is a big one. I use this all the time, especially when I ask, hey, so tell me this, what is your end goal? Once you sell the property, what are you looking to do, right? A lot of the times people say, I'm just looking to relocate, right? I'm looking to move to Seattle. That's where I got a lot of family at. Oh, that sounds amazing. What about it, right? You want to dive deep into the recreation. Oh yeah, it rains a ton up there. Yeah, I actually like it. We do some things. It's very therapeutic, right? Just talking about the recreation and what they do. Yeah, I typically write music when it rains. That's why I love Seattle, because it rains a lot, or whatever the case may be. And obviously this is hypothetical, but essentially you get the gist. You get somebody talking about what they do and what brings us together. Because let's face it, people do business with people that are like them, not necessarily people they like. They do business with people that are like them, right? So for me, when you're talking about football, I love football, right? So you talk about me with football, we're going to relate. We're going to come across and I'm like, man, I like you. You're pretty good. Or say if you're an up-tempo guy and this person is being very mellow, probably not going to like it. It's going to clash. The personalities aren't the same, so they're going to clash. If you're very up-tempo and I'm very up-tempo, we're probably going to like each other because we're both the same. We're going to sit there and say, you know what? I like him. He got a little spunk to him. I like that, right? That's just what we do. Or if they're not over the top and you're pretty calm, collective person, they're going to be like, you know what? He's not over the top. I like him. He's kind of calm and collective, right? So that's essentially what people do. They do business with people that are like them. So that's one thing that we all can relate to. When you hear somebody on the other end of that phone that sound like you, they could be from the same culture or whatever the case, same ethnicity, same background, right? At that particular point, it's always a good job to make sure you build rapport with that particular seller, and recreation allow you to do that. But essentially, people like and do business with people that are like them, right? And now you got motivation. Motivation is another one for networking, because you figure out, you guys come out together and you talk about certain things. Well, when you talk about motivation is more like a what are you looking to accomplish, right? And the sales call, that's the next one. We transition right out of the form, and we go right into motivation. Motivation, we got to ask motivation. That is very, very big. If we're not talking to that seller and we're not asking why you want to sell, it's very, very hard for you to make an emotional decision about selling. It's very, very hard for you to make a decision to even sell it at a discount. Typically, if there's no reason to sell, typically you're not motivated. And essentially, we're just wasting our time talking to you, right? So we want to make sure that the person we're talking to is actually motivated. And you're looking at like, Jordan, okay, that's great. How do I ask? This is how we ask. This is how I ask every time. You know what, Mr. Seller? This sounds like a great property. Tell me, why are you even interested in selling it? Right? I'm saying this strategically because I want them to know that it possibly be in their best favor to keep the house, right? I want to be their last option. But when I'm their last option, ching ching, we make a lot of money, right? So with that being said, I'm going to give the house a compliment. This sounds like a great property. Why are you interested in selling? And you just sit back and you listen. You don't say anything. You just sit back and you listen. And then you get multiple responses. You get this response. Well, I wasn't interested in selling, but since you want to give me a call, everything's for sale for the right price. That's not our particular seller. He's not really going to want to sell this particular property at a discount. And if we go into negotiations, they'll probably want to move on, right? So you got to listen for those things. Or are you going to get this person right here? You know what? My tenant hasn't paid rent since COVID stopped. I'm ready to sell it. Boom. Now we got a problem. And when we find out that problem, now we can push forward into that pain and dig a little bit deeper. So I always dig a little bit deeper on that motivation. I'm talking about, hey, you know what? How long have you been dealing with that, Mr. Seller? Right? It's been a pain in your side. Really? Wow. I can only imagine. How long have you been dealing with that? Who's all being impacted right now by it? Dang, I hate to hear that. Pretty sure that puts you in a tough spot, right? We want to dive deep into the motivation part of it and see exactly what's happening and what's going on with that particular seller. Now let's move into number 3. Hey, have you liked the video yet? Make sure you like the video. Why do I keep telling you this? Come on now, I thought you loved me. Number 3, the next thing we need to figure out is their timeline. If somebody tells me that 90 days out, man, you're not really interested in selling. Yeah, you would sell if you got your number, but that's literally the only thing that's going to dictate you selling. And if that's the only thing, it's probably not going to be a fit, right? 9 times out of 10, it's more than just a number. It's always a problem. So with that being said, typically we just move on. We keep following up, maybe in the future dates until they get motivated, because what turns unmotivated person into a motivated person? Time. That's the only thing that'll do it. So with that being said, we always look at it. It's a 90-day. I mean, if it's a 30-day window, typically in that particular window, what we're going to say is, you know what, this is a particular lead that can be followed up with all the time. We're going to put this in a CRM and we're going to call them every week, if not every day, until they're ready to sell. Right? That's typically what we try to do. Every day is when we're more along the lines where we're right there about to make the money. But as far as what we do, we're going to be looking at the timeline. If they're within 30 days, that's considered a lead. If they're 60, 90, we're just going to touch them once a month like we already planned on doing, or maybe 2-3 times a month, depending on your forms of marketing, right? So that's what you'll do. The next thing, the number 4 thing that you should get answered when we're talking about the sales call is amount owed. We need to figure out if they have equity. Now, I do a great job, my team does a great job of going after leads that just have equity. But say you're hitting a blind list, say if you're hitting a water shutoff list, right? Water shutoff list it's not going to be filtered by equity. So you're going to have to do a great job of asking that, right? How do you ask it, Jordan? The way I ask it, I'll be honest with you. I'm going to say, you know what? If you was to sell this property to me or anybody else, would you be interested in selling it? I mean, will we have to pay off any mortgages or liens? Or taxes owed on this thing, right? That's the question we're going to ask. And typically the seller, if you do it right, if you built rapport, you found the motivation, and if we got the right timeline, once we get to this particular point, that seller is going to be more open to you because they feel like you're somebody like them, right? Essentially, people want to do business with somebody that's like them, remember? So with that being said, that's exactly what's going to happen. So we got to make sure we got to make sure we ask that question. That way we can ensure that it's actually a doable deal, or we got to pay off any mortgages and liens, and we got to figure out what the equity is. So when we ask that question, they answer it and say, yes, I do have a mortgage. You wouldn't happen to know how much, would you? Right? I ask that question that way because I'm asking it in a way that almost seems like they don't know the answer. And if they do, typically they'll tell me, right? But it's a very, very dangerous question. So if you're going to ask that question, you got to make sure that you ask it in the right way. Because if you ask, how much do you own this property, Mr. Seller? Well, that's none of your darn business, Mr. Buyer. Right? It's a very dangerous question. A lot of times people get provoked when they hear that question because they're thinking to themselves, this person only wants to take money out of my pocket. If I tell them how much they're owed, they're only going to look at, give him $10,000 over, or give her $10,000 over, right? They're going to look to cap my money. So they're typically, they don't like to tell anybody what they owe, right? It's not going to change my offer, what you owe. But if you owe a little bit more than what I was planning on offering, now I got to get creative on actually providing you an actual solution or offer for your particular property, right? So that's one thing you got to look at. Another thing, number 5, we already talked about what they owe. Now the last thing is, what are they looking to accomplish out of this whole thing? What is the price? What is the goal that they're looking to do out of it? So obviously I always ask this question. You know what? I haven't done my homework yet. I've already done my homework, but I haven't done my homework yet. Tell me, what are these properties in your area going for? Right? We ask that question because we want to know their knowledge on the particular area. Right? So that's the reason we ask that question. Now, I'll be first one to tell you, it's not our job to educate the seller on how much it's worth. We just want to know if they have an idea, right? Because sometimes we haven't done our homework. Majority of the times we haven't done our homework, but sometimes we may haven't. So we need to ask that question to see what they think about the property and the value. And then at that particular point, they're like, yeah, you're right. Either they're right or they're wrong. I was like, okay, I can definitely understand that. So tell me this, how much are you looking to sell yours for? It's worth $220, but how much are you looking to get for yours? Right? And no matter what they say, unless they say it's worth $220, but they'll take $100 for it. Unless they say something like that, typically it's more along the lines, they say a price and then we automatically drop an anchor. Wow. Okay. Okay. Is that at all negotiable? Right? We want to set that anchor on that particular property. And the reason why is because it leaves us, that anchor is going to get them thinking. When I say wow, they're going to automatically assume, whoa, did I offer too much? Did I ask for too much for my particular property? Am I being unrealistic? Right? And that's all the anchor does. We're not going to say anything out the wow. We're going to say wow. And then we have those little pauses in there to allow them to give them time to renegotiate against their self. And then at that point, is that at all negotiable? Well, it could be, depending on when you can close or whatever the case may be. So those are the top 5 things that we talk about when going over sales call. I don't care if you're cold calling. I don't care if you're you have an incoming lead, inbound lead. Do not, and you notice in this call, I didn't mention property conditions, not once. I'm not saying that's not what we go over, but too many people are getting caught up on how many bedrooms and bathrooms we have. Too many people are getting caught up on the roof, the age of the roof, the age of the HVAC, the age of everything. Well, if you're going to set an appointment anyways, you can go take a look at all that particular stuff, right? You can look at the particulars. What you can't look at is actually the rapport that's being built. You can't look at the motivation, right? So those are things you want to get addressed over the phone. That way we know if we got a potential person that we want to understand why they want to sell. If you can understand why they may want to sell, I promise you, you have more deals to close. So with that being said, if you like that, please hit the like button. If you haven't done so already, make sure you share the information and maybe another fellow investor that could possibly use this so they can start turning and doing more deals. And with that being said, keep winning. Thank you guys.